Well, good morning, everyone. Well, you're not going to believe what has just happened now because I have actually prepared something that I was going to say and spent quite a lot of time on it yesterday, preparing it all. Sat down in front of the camera here, couldn't connect with it at all. I tried, it just wasn't working for me. So I have just put it to one side and decided I would do something completely different that did feel more like me. One of the bits of advice that I read about when you're talking to camera, and perhaps you're not used to doing that, is to get a picture of somebody that you know would be sympathetic to you doing this and put it behind the camera, which is exactly what I've done. So I've got my friend Alison, her photograph is on the iPad behind this camera, and there she is smiling at me, and she is my strength at the moment to feel like I'm connecting at least with somebody. So what I thought about today was the thing that came to mind really was this whole concept of David and Saul, because that's exactly how I felt. I felt like David did when he went in to prepare to fight Goliath, and Saul dressed him in his armor, and it said in 1 Samuel, I think it is, that David just walked about and tried to walk in all the armor, and he couldn't do it. It just wasn't him at all. So he took it all off, and he got his slingshot, and he went out, and in the clothes that he was comfortable in. And it also reminded me of something that God spoke to me about on my 49th birthday, which was a while back now, and it was the idea of your Jubilee year, so between 49 and 50, and I was praying about that and asking God, about the year ahead, and what did Jubilee look like for me, and I had this sort of not small voice in my head or something which said, write down the letters of Jubilee, which I did, and then I had the sense I had to rearrange the letters, and when I rearranged the letters of Jubilee, the letters came out as B Julie, all those letters, just be Julie, and I felt God was saying, just be you, the person I created, be yourself. So that also came back to me. So here I am talking on camera, got my notes around me. Honestly, it's like a Heath Robinson contraption all around me here. It's incredible. But the verses I wanted to read out here to you today, and I've just got them here, are from Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. And they say this: be confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on until completion, until the day of Christ. And I thought, yes, I'm a work in progress. And he started a good work in me, and he's going to carry it on to completion. I think, sometimes it's easy to think that that we need to do it the same way as everybody else, or we compare ourselves to other people. And I'm just so encouraged by the way that we are all so different, the diversity we see in creation and the different gifts we see in one another. And I'm not out in my garden this time where I was before. I'm in my sewing room at the moment. And over here, I would just show you here. I tried to line the camera up on it, and it was a total failure. So I just thought, below this, I'm just going to show it like it is. All these ribbons, all very, very different. And it was just another example of, God creates beauty out of chaos. I don't know what these are going to become, but I know that they will become something beautiful and in their own time, because, God does different things with each of us. We're all got different things to discover. And what I discover about him is going to be different from what you might discover about him. But we will be having something in common in that we will all be being transformed more and more into his likeness. And we read about that in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. If you want to read about that in more detail, read that chapter. And it talks a lot about us being transformed into his likeness. There are there are other things that I wanted to talk about too. I was going to take you in the garden, but then that wasn't going to work either. But the two things in the garden I was going to show you were our sweet peas, which I have Dicker sown and I've planted out, and they are all growing really well at the front of the house, but they've all needed a lot of support, and because they're tiny, they're going to need to grow up, they're going to need structure to support. So I've been tending to those very carefully to make sure they get watered and they get, they don't fall over and the slugs don't get them and all of that. They're going to need support, and some of us will need support on our journeys. We will need support on our journeys in this kingdom life. We're going to need support at different stages. And the other thing I noticed too was we planted a peony in our front garden 3 years ago. This year is the first year it's flowered, and we've had to wait 3 years to actually see this beautiful flower come to into its own, and it's been wonderful. In fact, we've had about 4 or 5 out of them, but we've had to wait because there's been a process. So one of the things I actually want to end with is that we are all we are all looking to him. Let's look to Jesus. Let's not look around at each other and compare ourselves with each other. Let's look to him, because by looking into his face, we will be transformed more and more into his likeness, which is, after all, the best thing ever. Thank you. Goodbye.